Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the president of the USTFCCCA, Dennis Shaver.
Well, it's great to see everyone tonight. We really appreciate everybody coming for this very special night to induct several more members into the Hall of Fame. This is one of all of our favorites tonight at the convention, and once again, really appreciate what a great turnout here this evening. I'm happy to mention that we have several Hall of Fame members representing 14 different Hall of Fame classes with us in attendance tonight. And I'd like to recognize them by bringing them all up on the stage.
From the class of 2001, Clyde Hart. From the class of 2004, Pat Henry. From the class of 2005, Victor Lopez. From the class of 2006, Tom Heinonen. From the class of 2008, Kim Deist. From the class of 2009, Chuck Rowe. From the class of 2012, Vin Lanana. From the class of 2013, Curtis Fry and Paul Olson. From the class of 2015, Gary Wilson. From the class of 2016, Mike Holloway. From the class of 2017, Jack Hazen. From the class of 2018, Karen Dennis. From the class of 2018, Ron Mann. From the class of 2018, Damon Martin. And finally, from the class of 2016, Marty Stern.
Hey, Marty.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm round of applause to your Hall of Fame coaches. And once again, we'd like to welcome back the president of the USTFCCCA, Dennis Shaver.
Man, if you added up all those championships from that crew, that'd be something else, wouldn't it? Really appreciate them being in attendance tonight, and of course, all of you. Little background, started in 1995, the U.S. Track and Field and Cross Country Coaches Association Hall of Fame exists to recognize coaches who have brought great distinction to themselves, to their institutions, and to the sports of cross country and track and field. The USTFCCCA Hall of Fame is committed to preserving the legacies and celebrating the storied careers of those who have made significant contributions to these sports. Since its inception, 198 coaches representing 158 different institutions spanning collegiate and high school levels have been inducted into the USTFCCA Hall of Fame. Each of these honorees exemplifies the qualities of dedication to the sport, leadership, and passion for their profession that serve as an inspiration to coaches everywhere in every sport. Let's take a look back at the careers of our first inductee, Dan Stimson.
For 25 years, the late Dan Stimson served the College of William & Mary as its director of cross country and track and field. Stimson was not only an absolute success for the school's athletic triumphs, but also a beloved mentor that crafted a generation of up-and-coming coaches in the sport, leaving a lasting legacy that will continue for decades. His collegiate story starts at Ohio University, where he was a team captain. Stimson was the winner of 2 Mid-American Conference crowns in the shot put. After a graduate assistant stint at Tennessee, he fine-tuned his coaching approach as an assistant during a 9-year stay at Miami University of Ohio. Stimson then was brought back to Tennessee by Hall of Fame coach Stan Huntsman. By his mid-30s, Stimson established himself as one of the top assistants and recruiters in the country. In his 4 years with the Vols, the program won 11 titles in the SEC, while finishing in the national top 10 in 7 seasons. Those credentials lured William & Mary to recruit Stimson for its top job. Stimson may have been a thrower at his core and was well adept at coaching his event area brethren, but he was also extremely successful at directing cross-country success. Remarkably, the men's cross-country team qualified for the NCAA National Championships on 14 occasions in a 17-year stretch. The men and women's cross-country teams combined for 35 CAA conference crowns. His program won another 14 conference titles in track and field. That's 49 league crowns out of 100 opportunities. Described as having an unyielding faith in his assistants, Stimson coached the coach, preparing his assistants for the next step and recommending their hire to prominent openings around the country. Among his protégés are Michigan State Director Walt Drenth, current George Mason Director Andrew Gerard, as well as Harvard's Alex Gibby and Kathy Newberry, among others. But Stimson is best remembered for his larger-than-life personality, a jovial sort that ultimately cared more about the future of his student-athletes' careers and their families than the trophies won. His former athletes and assistants attest that the secret to their success was driven by that approach. Stimson passed away in 2017 and is survived by his wife of 46 years, Rosemary, his 2 children, Claire and Krista, and 3 grandchildren. Dan Stimson, Coaches Hall of Fame inductee into the class of 2019.
Stop here and I'll give you your medal, okay? Here we go. Big congratulations, okay? Thank you.
Well, I'm Rosemary Stimpson. My claim to fame was my marriage to Dan. Here we go. And opposites attracted. I was an art teacher, but after listening to thousands of calls, recruiting calls, going to hundreds of track meets in this country and abroad, I have gotten to know a lot of wonderful students, athletes, and coaches and alums who have made the world a better place. And being from historic Williamsburg, or living there for the last 33 years, I've got to go through the history of this. They made me do it, and so now you're stuck listening. But I'll promise to keep it under 5 minutes, okay? And I first of all would like to thank the United States Track and Field Cross Country Association for inducting my husband into the Hall of Fame. I feel somewhat like a dinosaur now, coming out of the snowbanks of western New York State. Dan, it came from a time when cinder tracks, waiting for results, and little scientific knowledge of coaching. I met Dan in kindergarten, and as I said, opposites attracted. I was always the smallest in the class, and Dan was the biggest. I was the littlest angel in the Christmas program, and Dan was Santa Claus. At any rate, he kept up that persona for all of his life and made it a lot more fun for everybody. When we started dating at 15, our classmates called us Gronk and Chad, two Neanderthal TV characters from way back when. We didn't really appreciate how accurate that description was until many years later when our daughter became a geneticist for the CDC and she tracked our DNA, which gave us a pretty high percentage of actual Neanderthal DNA. So his family tree had an Irish king and a Revolutionary War captain in it, and it was determined that he would be a coach before he was ever born. Unfortunately, his gene pool also included a handicapping and deadly blood clotting disorder. World War II had prevented his dad from becoming a college coach, and because he was off to Guam, so Dan had to fulfill his father's dreams. It wasn't easy, but Dan always said, we both won the lottery with the parent lottery. Our parents were loving and supportive and challenging. And next to honesty, the work ethic was paramount. Dan worked on farms before he was 10 years old. We both were recruited by Stan Huntsman at Ohio University. I got an academic scholarship, Dan got a track scholarship. Stan's influence was profound throughout our lives. We followed him to the great state of Tennessee. When Tennessee got second in the nationals in the NCAAs to Alabama, who was later disqualified. After going broke as graduate assistants at UT, he had a quick stint at a high school coaching outside DC. He got a call from Chuck Zodi at Miami University, who became another great influence on Dan's career. When at Miami, we met George and Una Ryder, probably one of the greatest coaches this country has ever had. They founded Miami University's Cradle of Coaches. Honesty, integrity, scholarship, and total development of mind, body, soul, and the historic fight against racism. Those became the guiding principles of my husband's coaching. All of these coaches and teams refused to succumb to the racism prevalent at the time. They boycotted white-only establishment, sometimes meaning that they had to eat peanut butter sandwich and sleep in bathtubs in rodent-infested dorms on trips. They worked for affirmative action, first for blacks and then for women. Dan was part of the early movement for the development of Title IX and volunteer-coached women at UT. There, he helped his friend, a young Pat Head Summit, put her basketball team on a strengthening and conditioning program early in her career. Relationships were always paramount for Dan. Oh, he loved winning, but only if it involved the total development of the athlete. He hated drugs, cheating, and dishonesty. His work ethic and being in season year-round for 30-some years did take a toll on his health and his family. Yet, he was proud of his daughter, a PhD geneticist, and his son, an honors graduate of Old Dominion. He also always favored the scholar athlete, which culminated in his association with William and Mary. He was thrilled to have Alex Haycock as one of his former throwers become the next director of track, and his greatest hope was that the track program would continue to thrive. I would like to thank you all for this honor, and I made it.
Right here. Let's turn around. Dan's name's on the front. Let's get a picture here.
The University of Notre Dame is known for its legends. Joe Piani is among them. For more than 40 years, Piani propelled the Irish track and field and cross-country programs, finishing his career as the second longest tenured coach in the history of the famed athletics department. Piani graduated from Loras College, where he was a captain of the Dewhawks' undefeated cross-country team as a senior. It didn't take long for Piani to find his way to South Bend. In 1974, he was hired by fellow Hall of Fame Notre Dame coach Alex Wilson to assist. One short year later, Piani was handed the baton to continue the Irish way, and that he did. From 1975 until his retirement in 2014, Piani's men and women dominated the conference ranks and were a fixture on the national stage. His squads won a staggering 54 league titles, combining eras in what is now known as the Horizon League and the Big East. He coached athletes to 166 Big East individual and relay titles and to 189 All-America honors. A two-time National Cross-Country Coach of the Year, Piani's teams accounted for 14 top 10 national finishes on the course. His 2002 women's team and his 2005 men's team both earned third-place podium finishes at national championships. On the international stage, Piani led the U.S. national team at the Pan American Junior Championships and served as the Midwest Regional Chairman for the U.S. Olympic Development in Track and Field, among others. The Irish eyes have always been smiling on Joe Piani. Now they'll be doing so as a member of the USTFCCCA Coaches Hall of Fame. His name is Joe Piani, class of 2019.
Congratulations, Coach Piani.
Thank you.
Here we go.
I appreciate it.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you and good evening. First, a big thanks to Sam and his tireless workers, not only for this dinner, but the entire convention. I remember the first one I went to was in Louisville. I think it was about 1,000 years ago, and there are 50 of us in the room. Today, I think there's 1,800 college coaches that have signed up for this convention, and over 2,000 people here tonight. Congratulations to my fellow inductees for their many years of service and dedication to the sport that we all know and love. Coaches, I don't know if you realize how fortunate you are to be coaching track and field, but you will when you retire. You work with young people, and you're working in arguably the oldest sport in the world. If there was a bell curve of job satisfaction, I think the coaches would be on the far right side of that bell curve. Coaches may not all get wealthy, but as they say, what you do receive is truly priceless. I was thinking initially about people I need to thank, and I decided I don't need to thank anyone. There's a lot of people I want to thank. For those people that have influenced my life and my career, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here today. The first person I'd like to thank is not here tonight. It's my wife, Mimi. She died tragically 3.5 years ago. She was my rock. She always kept me grounded. A quick, very quick story about Mimi. Her last name, maiden name, was Kostakis, very Greek. She grew up in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is the home of Western Michigan University. At that time, the head track coach was George Dales. Many of you know George. I should also tell you that George's real name is not George Dales. It was Yorgo Dele Yorgo. If he was Greek, just like Mimi. The two families were exceptionally close. They did everything together. They did weekends together. They did holidays together, barbecues together. In fact, my wife was godmother for one of George's daughters. My future mother-in-law told my wife as she was growing up, "I'll never interfere with who you marry." But you see poor Tina Dales raising those 4 kids all by herself? Don't you ever marry a track coach. I'd like to thank my son Nick, who unfortunately could not be here tonight, but I want to thank him for understanding the many nights and weekends that I was away. The third person I need to recognize is Jim Sackett, class of, I think, 2007. He was a Hall of Famer. I met him when I was doing graduate work at Western Illinois University. He allowed me to be a volunteer for 1 year, and then I was a graduate assistant for a second. Jim gave me my start in collegiate coaching. If you work for 40 years, you're going to have lots of coaches, but there are 3 people that stand out as the most significant. The first is Tim Conley. Tim's now at Carnegie Mellon. The second is Scott Windsor. Scott is now at Michigan State. And the third is John Miller. John is happily retired. Those 3 fellows and myself, we were together for nearly 20 years straight, which is unprecedented in terms of coaching. Any success that we had, each of them played a major role. There's a few other coaches I'd like to thank that are here, some that are here tonight. Jim Hurt from St. John's University, Peter Farrell from Princeton University, and of course, my dear friend, Mike Mulqueen. And then there's 2 other fellas that are in the Italian Mafia with me, Frank Gagliano and Vincenzo Vinny Lanana. I'd also like to thank our team physician, Dr. Steve Simons, who did his best to keep our kids healthy. He's a terrific doctor, but an even better friend. Tonight, there are many friends here from the Notre Dame and South Bend community, and I want to thank them. Also, the present staff at Notre Dame, I want to thank them for all they've done for me. Actually, to be honest with you, every once in a while they let me go to lunch with them and they let me tell stories. And they actually look like they're interested in those stories that I have to tell. But if you work for 40 years, you're going to work with hundreds, if not thousands, of student athletes. But let's be honest, there's always one that stands out as the most significant. And for me, it's Dr. Chuck Aragon. Chuck came to us from a little place called Las Lunas, New Mexico in 1977. To be honest, his first 3 years were okay, but boy did he blossom as a senior. He went on to be a many-time All-American, then off to medical school. But while in medical school, he ran for Athletics West, ran in several Olympic trials, made several U.S. teams, and even medaled at the Pan Am Games. He and his lovely wife are here tonight, and they've been very kind to kind of include me into their family. As a matter of fact, I'm godfather for their oldest child, Alexa. Alexa ran for us for 4 years. Now that's recruiting, birth through graduation. I've often said that if Chuck hadn't run well in 1981, I'd probably be selling aluminum siding today. But Chuck taught us one thing: it's possible. If you work hard, have a goal, and do everything that it takes, it's possible to attain it. Fortunately for me, today there's another special lady in my life, and she's here today. Her name is Nancy Clace. She is getting a crash course in cross country and track and field, and I thank you for that, Nancy. People ask if I miss coaching. Well, of course I miss the relationships with young men and women, but the 2 things I miss the most are practice and competition. Practice, I love practice. Probably love that even more than meets. When you ask an individual or group of individuals to do something, they do it and do it well. That's artistry. It's beautiful. After they've done that great workout, you go up to them and you can see it in their eyes. They know that they just become a better athlete. They've become one step closer to that goal, of whatever that goal is for them, but it is artistry. And of course, I miss competition. They were always fun. Win or lose, they were fun. It's just a heck of a lot more fun to win. There's a lot of things about coaching that I don't miss, and I'll leave that to your imagination. So what did I learn? I learned that if I left my coaches to do their job, we would succeed. I don't believe I ever micromanaged. I don't think I ever told a coach that you must do this particular workout today or you must run this individual into competition. It was their job and they did it well. I found that if I left my coaches alone, they would be the best coach they could be. They'd work even harder and they'd have ownership in the program. I found that finding the best in others, I found the best in me, and we all succeeded. My coaches were truly the head coach of their individual events. It worked for us. I hope that I gave my coaches a template for coaching success. I hope that I gave my student athletes an example of honesty, integrity, the desire to work hard to succeed, and as Chuck taught us, it's possible. This applied not only to their track life, but their entire life beyond track and field. 40 years at one university is quite a while. It reminds me of the story of a snail. We all know how fast snails are, and the snail had to walk across the road. When he got to the other side, his friend said, "How was it? What was it like?" The snail said, "I don't know, it went so fast." That's the way 40 years was. Coaches embrace the victories, but learn from the losses. Coaching may be the best job in the world. It's a heck of a lot better than working. Remember, if you work for a few years, coach for a few years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, even 40 plus years, it's like the snail, because it goes so fast. Enjoy your career, hopefully as much as I did mine. If you make people that you work with better, they'll make you better. Thank you, and go Irish!
Very good, Joe. You're welcome. I know, but hang on to it. And remember, it's two pieces here, okay?
I understand.
I got you.
North Carolina State took a chance on Raleigh Geiger back in 1979. At the time, Geiger was lacking coaching experience at the collegiate level, but had directed a successful prep program in Florida. That was enough for the Wolfpack to hire the Kent State grad. Success and Geiger went hand in hand from the beginning. Within 2 years of landing on campus, he led the NC State women's cross-country squad to back-to-back ACC and National AIAW team titles in 1979, while Julie Shea won individual national crowns in both years. Shea was the first woman to be named the ACC's All-Sport Athlete of the Year, doing so twice. She was a spotlight athlete for the league, as she also claimed 3 straight AIAW 5,000-meter titles on the track. Geiger's program dominated the 80s and the dawn of women's cross-country championships in NCAA's Division I. The Wolfpack placed in the national top 5 6 times in the meet's initial 7 years. In addition, Betty Jo Springs won the NCAA's individual crowns in 1981 and 1983, while Susie Tuffy did the same in 1985. By 1984, NC State handed Geiger the reins of its combined track and field program. Under Geiger's direction, 8 ACC team track and field championships have returned home to Raleigh, while nearly 200 have earned All-America honors and 4 have won NCAA event titles. His cross-country teams now have combined for 32 conference titles, 11 regional crowns, and 21 national top 10 finishes. Altogether, the Wolfpack have risen to the top of the ACC team podium 40 times during his tenure. In 2006, Geiger passed the torch of leading the women's cross-country team to Laurie Hennis, herself a longtime assistant coach with NC State. Multi-time All-American Hennis won an NCAA title while coached by Geiger. As of 2019, her team has won 4 straight ACC crowns and 4 national top 10 finishes. On the domestic and international level, Geiger served as head coach for the U.S. national team for the 1987 World Cross Country Championships. It's only fitting that the leader of the pack is now in the USTFCCCA Coaches Hall of Fame. Please welcome Raleigh Geiger to the class of 2019.
What's with the shoes?
I don't know.
Congrats here, Raleigh. Stage is yours, my man.
So the first thing I read on my notes, make sure you can find a bathroom. That's what I got written down right here. There's a few I'd like to recognize that are not in the body of my 30-minute speech. Rusty Buchanan is here. He was my first GA. He's now first vice president of the AAU here in Florida. My sister-in-law is here, Terry, her husband, Steve. And Steve, thank you for not wearing a Michigan hat. I do appreciate that. He is a fanatic Michigan fan. I got a couple athletes back here, Kim and Trish. Thank you for being here. And my daughter's husband, Thomas, is at the table. Thank you for being here. We don't remember days, we remember moments. But first, I'd like to thank the USTFCCCA and the selection committee, CEO Sam Seams and his staff. I want to congratulate fellow inductees Karen, Bobby, Jack, Joe, and Dan. It seems like I've been following you, Joe, for a long time. You achieved nothing alone, so I need to recognize some folks that are here. First, my wife, 33 years that we've been together, and I would not be standing here tonight if it wasn't for you. Now, everybody in this room would probably agree to that, for sure. I was on a bus in Wisconsin. We had a cross-country meet up in Madison, and I was talking to the bus. I had a tendency to talk to bus drivers. Kind of like those guys. The bus driver had been married 61 years. Yeah, and he's driving a bus at 80 miles per hour, and I'm going, this is not a good thing. If you do the math on 61 years, it's 22,000 plus days. That's a long time. I'm not going to make that. That's a high bar. My daughter's here, Rachel. My son, Trey. I want to thank you two for being here tonight. What I really miss, both are NC State grads, by the way. What I really miss is our candlelight dinners as a family. We did that quite often. When if all 4 of us were home, it was a candlelight dinner. I miss that. Mom and Dad, blue collar. I grew up in Bedford, Ohio, suburb of Cleveland. Work ethic. Hard work is a prerequisite. My mom and dad worked hard. My mom worked 2 jobs. One of them was in the high school cafeteria, so we had lunch, my brother and I. My dad had a blue-collar job. So I learned early on the value of hard work. I'd like to thank 2 high school coaches. Nothing more important, in my opinion, than a high school coach. It all gets started with a high school coach. I had 2 that were outstanding, Jim Rose and Robert Stabile, incredible high school coaches. I want to thank Kent State University. I'm a graduate of Kent State. I had a recruit in my office, and he said, he was from Ohio. He said, you graduated from Kent State. I said, that's right. Then he said, can't read, can't write, don't remember last night. So I asked him where he was going to go to school next year. It wasn't going to be us. Part of the group of guys that were on the Kent State team at the time were Sammy Bear, Orrin Richburg, Al Schotterman. We had a group. And I can tell you that, I don't know if Orrin's here or not. But if you room with Orrin on a trip, I can guarantee you we're going to get any rest the night before the competition. I guarantee you that. Those of you who know Orrin know that's true. I want to thank the NC State coaching staff. They're all back here. And like you, Joe, we don't have assistant coaches. They're all head coaches. Every one of them is a head coach in their area. I really believe that. Hire a good coach and let them coach. Here tonight, Chris Coleman. Chris was a St. Aug grad, so George Williams is his mentor. Tom Wood is here, our throw coach. Fred Flintstone was his mentor. In fact, now, your throw coaches are different, man. All he does is get results, I can promise you that. Alan Johnson is here. Everyone knows, everybody in this room knows Alan. And also in the Sprint area, we have Tori Edwards Johnson. Chris Eaton in the distance events is here. Graduate spent some time in Virginia, West Virginia. No, Virginia Tech. Here we go. It's one of those Virginia schools. Spent time there, but then transferred to NC State. Like to recognize the last two is Bob Hennis. You fill in for us at times and the coaching staff. And last, Laurie Hennis, who won her 4th consecutive ACC title this past year. The 4th. Congratulations to Laurie. I do want to remind, very nice. I do want to remind Laurie, though, the conference record for ACC titles by one coach on the women's side is 7. Just want to make sure Laurie remembers that. It's interesting that, Laurie won an ACC title when she was at school, and then her daughter won this past year. That's pretty cool. No one mentions, hardly a mention of Bob, the husband, the father. He won 3, and no one mentions the guy. I'd like to thank Game Operations. Jackie Brooks and Matt Chick are here. Jackie knows more about me than I do. True. And that staff, if you add up the number of years they've been on campus, it's over 100. They say once you're in, you don't get out. But it's over 100 years. Past staff who are present tonight, Curtis Fry, 2013 inductee. Curtis, love you, man. And we worked so well together. It was a lot of fun in those years you were on staff. Jason Vigilante is here, now at Princeton. Jason was the worst GA I ever had in my life. He didn't want to get the water. He didn't want to get a van. He didn't want to measure a course. He wanted to coach. And he's good at it. Chad Pearson is here from UNCG. Tim Brock. Jimmy Fallon. Did I say that? Jimmy Fallon? Anyway, Tim Brock is here from Providence. And Tim, you're learning a lot more from Ray Tracy. I have such great respect for Ray than you would at NC State. My friends from Adidas, I want to thank them. Todd Klein, Jennifer Thomas. NC State for being my home. NC State's my home. It has been for 40 years. It's my home. In recruiting, eventually, you're going to end up in someone's living room. And I believe there's 2 things that you're going to talk about while you're there. A, your program, and 2, the institution you're working for. Not hard for me. That's home. I love NC State. It's been good to my family. Both my children are graduates. Betty's in the Hall of Fame. So it's not hard for me to talk about NC State. I think their slogan right now is think and do the extraordinary. It's hard for me to say. From the department, senior associate with oversight on track and field is Fred Demarest. he had spent time, he's sitting right here, you had spent time at LSU, Texas A&M, and Florida as an administrator. He said to me tonight, we had a little social gathering, he said, finally, I'm part of a quality track and field program. I believe those three coaches will be looking for you after the ceremony here tonight. Yeah, good luck with that. And media relations, Maddie Smith, I appreciate you being here tonight. In 1979, Tom Jones, head coach at NC State, gave a high school coach an opportunity. That's what it was, an opportunity. Tom and his wife, Sandy, and if you know Sandy, you know what a bond they had. We're close friends. My first year at NC State, I had more dinners at his house than I did any place else. It's a good thing. My annual salary at that time was $3,000 a year, so I needed a meal. He left NC State in 1984 with stops at UTEP, Arizona State, and the University of Florida. Tom passed in 2007 after a long battle with cancer. He was inducted that same year into this Hall of Fame. Tom was an incredible coach, best coach I've ever been around, but he was a better man, and I miss Tom. I didn't know when Tom gave me this opportunity, I'd be standing here tonight. Who would? Coaching awards, in my opinion, are the result of the accomplishments of others. What a profession. Someone does really well, and we get the credit. Pretty good. So what I'm going to do here is for all the athletes who believed in the process and wore the uniform, I am not going to thank that group. I'm going to congratulate that group. Because in a moment, they're going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Happy holidays, everybody.
Congratulations. Let's go over here and get a picture, Raleigh. It's over here. All right, it's two pieces, remember. You got it.
The Chronicles of Dr. Jack Daniels. No, it's not the title of the latest Disney film or Ken Burns documentary, although you can imagine this ongoing epic fitting the bill. An early interest in competitive fitness spurred a lifetime of education, research, innovation, and unparalleled coaching successes for Dr. Jack Daniels. Still teaching his groundbreaking training advancements deep into his 80s, Daniels continues to leave an indelible impact on the sports of track and field and cross country. As an Army veteran and a savvy student of physiology, Daniels excelled as an athlete in the Olympic modern pentathlon, the ultimate fitness and field test for a soldier. He won 2 medals in the team event, silver in 1956 and bronze in 1960. Throughout the 60s, Daniels pursued more education, all while testing and mentoring Olympic athletes bound for Tokyo in 1964 and high-altitude Mexico City in 1968. He earned his Master's of Education from Oklahoma while coaching at Oklahoma City University. Following a 1-year stint as the head coach of the Peruvian national team, Daniels completed his PhD thesis in exercise and altitude at Wisconsin. In 1969, he was hired as the first head coach of women's track and field at the University of Texas. He also served as an assistant of the men's program. He held both positions until 1980. Later in the 80s, Daniels found his way to the State University of New York in Cortland. Over an 18-year period as head coach of the men's and women's programs, it was there where he built a dynasty. From 1986 to 2004, the Red Dragons won 8 NCAA Division III national titles. They finished national runner-up 4 other times and amassed 31 individual national titles to go with more than 120 All-America honors. His women's cross-country squad won an all-time leading 7 D3 crowns over a 10-year period, including 4 in a row from 1992 to 1995. All the while, his research and development continued. While at Oklahoma City University, Daniels coached Jimmy Gilbert, who went on to work at NASA for 35 years as a mathematician. Together, the duo innovated the algorithms for VDOT scoring, a method for comparing running performances based on oxygen consumption. Having the objective data in hand, Daniels built revolutionary training systems and introduced to the world via his book The Daniels Running Formula, and the development techniques contained within were soon adapted by coaches at all levels. Runner's World magazine named Daniels the world's best running coach and the Albert Einstein of running. Daniels also spent time as the head distance coach at the U.S. Center for High Altitude Training in Flagstaff, Arizona, where he mentored countless more Olympians. For the decades of Olympiads to come, there's no doubt that Daniels' timeless impact will continue. So raise your glass to Dr. Jack Daniels, now a member of the USTFCCCA Coaches Hall of Fame, Class of 2019.
Coach Daniels, what an innovator. Yes, totally awesome seeing all that. Here you go.
I'd like to mention something first that was brought up here. They mentioned Jimmy Gilbert. Jimmy Gilbert ran for me in the 1960s and then worked for NASA and helped me develop our VDOT programs. But an interesting thing about Jimmy is that he called me a couple of years ago to say he had just finished running his 100,000th mile. He averaged 38.6 miles a week for 50 years. And he's still running to this day. I certainly feel honored for being inducted into this Hall of Fame, and I want to mention a few factors that have led to my success as a coach. My personal Olympic sport was modern pentathlon, which includes cross-country horseback riding with about 25 obstacles to take on, fencing, pistol shooting, swimming, and running. One year, of the top 60 pentathletes in the world, I was ranked first in riding, third in swimming, 8th in shooting, 11th in fencing, and a relatively weak 24th in running. So that's why I became a running coach. So I spent years researching running in hopes of improving that event. First, I must mention something that Larry Snyder told me. If you don't know Larry, he coached at Ohio State many years ago, and he and I coached the Peruvian national team together. He told me when we were in Peru, he said, "Coaches don't make athletes great. Athletes make coaches great." Easy for Larry to say, since the first year he coached at Ohio State, he had a freshman named Jesse Owens on his team. Who made who great? As for my athletic and coaching success, there have been many people who helped me. Many family people in particular. My parents were very supportive, and my older brother Danny taught me how to shoot a gun, how to hunt and fish, to love the outdoors, and to be a smoke jumper for the U.S. Forest Service. Danny also had 2 outstanding boys, and one is with us here tonight, Tupper, who's a jet fighter pilot instructor, and just this year advanced to rank of general in the Air Force. Tupper's over here at my table. Brother Kent, also here, when he was in high school in Montana, was the state Montana heavyweight wrestling champion, undefeated his senior year. And after school years, he became Montana State trap shooting champion. These guys can shoot better than I could, and that's my Olympic sport. And even though I managed to win 2 medals in 2 Olympics, my brother Jerry easily outdid me during his years working for the CIA in Laos, working with the Hmong and he earned 3 of the top 4 CIA medals given for service and honor. During my years of coaching at SUNY Cortland, I managed to coach 30 individual national champions, 130 All-Americans, and my daughter Audra, who's here, just used to come out and cheer on the team. We used to carry her around in a Nike bag to the cross-country meets. And she herself ran a marathon, did a triathlon, and the annual 100-mile bike ride in South Lake Tahoe. And I'll guarantee you there's no way I could ever do a 100-mile bike ride, no matter how good a shape I was in. And our other daughter, Sarah, who's here, was an outstanding soccer player and fast runner. And when we were in Flagstaff, she became very good friends with a couple of 2-time Olympians, Anthony Familetti and Abdi Abdurrahman. I'm sure many of you know these 2 guys, both of whom appreciated Sarah's singing ability and often saw Abdi at her shows. He always said he was going to come and wear something weird so she'd laugh during the show, and he would never do that. These 2 guys are 2 of the greatest athletes we've ever had in this country. Sarah now sings opera in New York City. I want to express special thanks to the 26 elite distance runners, 9 of whom made United States Olympic teams, including Bob Schul, Jim Ryan, and George Young, gold, silver, and bronze medalists. I first tested those 26 guys in 1968. The same 26 returned to my lab for testing in 1993 for a 25-year follow-up study. And the remaining 22 of that original group came back for a 45-year follow-up study in 2013. These guys, you can't help but learn something from a bunch of runners like that you're around. Unbelievable group. As great has been the support from other coaches, elite runners, and family members, the most support I've ever had has been from my wife, Nancy, who's also with us, who herself was an outstanding runner. 7 New England championships when she was at the University of New Hampshire, and believe it or not, she qualified for the U.S. Olympic trials in the 1500 and the marathon. And that's a fair variety of events. She was officially my assistant coach for 25 years, including all the years at Cortland when our teams were so successful. Nancy's strengths as a coach are in the area of emotional and motivational factors, quite different from my more physiological approach, but that's a perfect combination for coaching attributes. No doubt, these 2 people, or these 2 approaches, provide desirable information for runners being coached. I again want to thank everyone who has been supportive of my research and coaching endeavors, and I'm certainly honored to be with all of you during this event tonight. Thank you.
Congratulations, Jack. Let's get a picture here.
Bobby Lang stepped onto the campus of Florida A&M University in 1953 on a football and track and field scholarship. He unlikely knew that he would spend more than 3 decades in service to his university. Earning both bachelor's and master's degrees in physical education from the school, he spent the first decade of his career as a successful prep school teacher and coach. In 1966, the opportunity came to return to his alma mater as an assistant football coach while also inheriting the reins of a highly successful track and field program that had already produced the likes of Olympic gold medalist Bob Hayes. As a defensive tackles and ends coach for 15 years, the Rattlers football team most notably won the inaugural NCAA Division I AA national title in 1978. As the FAMU men's track and field head coach, Lang built his own legacy, relentlessly challenging his athletes to achieve their successes with hard work and discipline despite frustrations. Out of the gate, the Rattlers rattled off 5 straight conference crowns in the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference in his first 5 years at the helm. During the same time, his 4x1 squads also impressed the collegiate ranks as it captured 3 straight Penn Relay crowns. All the while, he would mentor 1972 Munich Olympian Ray Robinson in the short sprints. Robinson would equal the world record in the 100 meters at the U.S. Olympic trials that year. Early in the 80s, Lang also became the head women's coach and had immediate success. His crew finished 5th at the 1982 AIAW Division II Outdoor Championships, headlined by now Fox NFL broadcaster Pam Oliver. Florida A&M also moved to NCAA Division I and the MEAC. In 1988 and 89, Lang became the first in MEAC history to coach his men's team to the conference Triple Crown, earning titles in cross country, indoor track and field, and outdoor track and field. Lang also gave time to the Tallahassee community as he headed FAMU's National Youth Sports Program in the summer. Upon his retirement in 1999, the final tally amounted to 38 conference team crowns between the SIAC and MEAC. Rattlers for life isn't just a motto for Lang. It also built his family. Lang met his wife Gladys at the school, and their 3 children all earned degrees from FAMU. FAMU indeed. Please welcome Bobby Lang to the USTFCCCA Coaches Hall of Fame.
All right, Coach Lang, congratulations.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank the steering committee for thinking enough to put Bobby Lang in this Hall of Fame. I have a old saying that if you have done something worthwhile and you can stay around long enough, somebody gonna recognize it. Somebody gonna recognize it. I was very, very blessed and lucky to get the job. I was hired by Jake Gaither to coach the track and field team. Had never coached track in my life. I was a high school coach, and he decided to bring me aboard. And thanks to a guy named Ken Gibson, who was the track coach and was leaving. And very fortunate that he left a team in place for me to get started on and for me to learn on. And boy, did we have success. We started out with 4 guys. I think they're here tonight. Are those guys pin relay guys? Are you here? Stand up. Where are they? They're the only team in the pin relay's history to win 3 consecutive championships, and that's a very blessing. And blessed had them to get me started on. But before I get into that, I better do the thing, so I won't get my wife. Don't forget to do that, because when I get back home and tell her, baby, I'm in the Hall of Fame, and she's gonna say, you still got to take the garbage out. So, will the kids stand up? Angela and Ronnie and Mollard and their families and the little baby, they're all there. And will all the people who are in support of Florida A&M and this old guy stand up from over there? Thanks very kindly. You know, you're very fortunate that if you can go to a career and have some success. Florida A&M was very blessed to have had 2 Olympians in the sprint events. One was a guy, I think y'all remember, named Bob Hayes. Do you remember that name? Yeah, okay. And then the other guy who was a world record holder and an Olympian. Ray, are you here? Where's Ray? Stand up, Ray. Yeah. Yeah. I better watch out because when I start calling names, I'm going to miss somebody. I see that Greg Coleman, where are you? One of my great hurlers that flew all the way in from Minnesota to be with Coach. Mary Jones, where are you? Yeah, Florida came in all the way from California to be at this event. And I do appreciate you kids, and I appreciate you. There's one thing that you have to remember as a coach, and don't get big-headed about it. That athlete is the thing that makes you work. And you better know what you're doing when you start trying to work with him. I saw a coach. Did I say I saw a coach take a boy who was a 7-foot jumper and destroyed him. Boy jumped 7 foot, and this coach started coaching and changing and going on, and the kid never jumped 7 feet again. So you better be careful, coaches, especially you young coaches out there. I know you got all the ideas and you know it all. Yeah, but you may not know it all. Listen to somebody, and sometimes listen to the kid, because that kid, he's the one that's going to make you or break you. And God knows, be good to him. Be good to the kid. He's the guy that's going to help you get your salary up. He's going to be the guy that's going to help you get to this conventions like this. And he's going to be the guy that helps you get into this thing called Hall of Fame. It's a blessed thing to be able to do that and to be very lucky. Of all the coaches that's out there that coaching and work hard all their lives, there are a lot won't make it, but are good people and good coaches. Do your job well. Know your job well. Be a teacher. Be a teacher before you start trying to be a coach. Listen to him. You just might be surprised of what you might be able to get done being a teacher and not a coach. Want to wear that saying, I'm a coach. Man, that's what's around. I'm a coach. Yes, you may be a coach, but are you a teacher? And can you teach and get it done? That's a thing that you need to carry with you and don't forget. And don't forget the kid. And I thank the committee. I thank you for coming. I thank you for inducting Bobby Lang into the Hall of Fame. And I'll try not to be as long-winded as some of these other coaches up here. Okay. Thank you very kindly, and have a great night.
We'll hold it together. I'm going to carry this down for you.
Karen Bowen started her coaching journey later than most, but with the steadfast dedication and encouraging spirit, she has proven that time is only relative. Bowen competed collegiately for Bridgewater State before starting a family and an initial career as a technician in the cardiology department at a Boston area hospital. With the encouragement and recommendation from her brother-in-law, Stonehill College baseball coach Pat Bowen, Karen was hired in 1997 as the department's part-time head coach for women's cross country. The program was tagged to lose its varsity status the following year. But Bowen's drive convinced the then athletics director to change course. What followed was the building of a powerhouse program and a Hall of Fame-worthy resume. It didn't take long for Stonehill to establish itself as a perennial power in both the Northeast 10 Conference and the NCAA Division II's East Region. Stonehill got their first taste of success in 1999 when Bowen's women's cross-country squad turned a 7th-place conference showing the previous year to a runner-up finish the next. That same year, Bowen was tapped to head all aspects of the Stonehill men's and women's track and field and cross-country programs. The next year, the Stonehill women won its first conference title in program history, opening the proverbial floodgates that would spur the next 2 decades of dominance. Ever since, Stonehill has won 38 conference titles under Bowen's watch, including 26 in cross-country. Most recently, in the fall of 2019, the women's cross-country squad won its 11th consecutive conference crown and its 12th East Region title to secure its 19th straight bid to the NCAA National Championships. Bowen's men's cross-country squad also made its 17th straight showing at the national meet this fall. Earlier this year, Bowen announced that she would be stepping down as head coach of the Stonehill track and field programs, but she is still in command of the Skyhawk cross-country programs, and so the count of titles can still reach new heights. No matter where she has been in her career, Bowen has proven that she always does it with heart. Please welcome Karen Bowen, 2019 inductee into the USTFCCCA Coaches Hall of Fame.
Congratulations, Coach Bowen. Stage is yours.
Well, well, well. Good evening. I'd like to begin by congratulating the other award winners. I'm humbled to be sharing the stage with all of you. I studied exercise science as an undergrad at Bridgewater State College and cardiac rehabilitation in grad school, so to be here with Jack Daniels is pretty much an overwhelming, humbling experience. I would also like to thank the Hall of Fame committee for honoring me and the program at Stonehill College. When I first got word of this, I truly didn't know how to react. I never would have thought a small Division II program outside of Boston would get such recognition. I had a hard time digesting everything when the announcement came out and it was first released. I couldn't figure out why I got selected when so many of you are equally, if not more, entitled. I began intercepting texts and emails, and if I were being honest, I really felt like an imposter. I was a bit stressed, and when I'm stressed, I did what I always do. I went to TJ Maxx. Over the next several days, I came to a place of acceptance. I'm proud of our program, of the accomplishments that my athletes have made. We have never won a national championship, but our teams are always fighting to be represented at one. We're like that mosquito that buzzes in your ear at night. You can't swat it, but you hope that it makes a difference and goes away. Our teams are known for their hard work, strong academics, and for how they represent themselves on and off our campus. It's because of them, truly, that I am on this stage. I have never had the privilege of running on a high school cross-country or track and field team. I grew up in the projects in South Boston in the early 70s where girls' sports really weren't that celebrated. What I did have was a strong Irish single mother whose mission it was to keep her kids out of the projects in the hot summer days. She signed us up for any free program that was available. For my brothers, it was the Boys Club overnight camp. And for me, it was a camp for low-income kids that was federally funded and was basically the best thing that ever happened to me. They would pick up kids from all over the city, every neighborhood, every walk of life, every color, and they would descend us on Boston University, where coaches and athletes that were participating in collegiate athletics would mentor us and just basically introduce us to a variety of different sports. They had tennis, they had soccer, they had swimming, and of course my favorite was track and field. One of the things that I think was, at the time, my life's accomplishment, at age 13, I won Outstanding Female Camper at the camp. You would have thought I died and went to heaven. I didn't pay much attention, but it certainly made its mark on me and gave me the confidence that I didn't have as a 10-year-old girl. Unfortunately, sports would end when the summer ended. It was a tumultuous time in Boston, especially my senior year in high school. Desegregation of the schools was implemented and the neighborhoods were all in chaos. Many of my summer friends from all over the city had to make decisions to walk into a very violent school situation or drop out of school. Luckily for me, that single Irish Catholic mother that I was talking about was going to have no part of this. She enrolled me in October of my senior year in a suburban school outside of Boston. Unbeknownst to me, it was my father's address, and to this day I don't really know if he knew I was at this school. But his sister certainly did, and she's here representing us tonight. I might as well have been on another planet, in the suburbs, but I did graduate, unlike so many others. That summer, the camp folks were very concerned about my inability to navigate the college enrollment process and convinced me that I could do this. In July, a local politician took the time to drive me to Bridgewater State College to speak to the admissions department on my behalf. I sat outside until he came out and he said, "They're going to take you. Don't screw this up." That was my college advice. On the way home, we stopped, we bought a newspaper, and I rented a room in a woman's house because it was already July, and I started my college career. I think my sophomore year at college, I was running across the campus, and my anatomy coach pulled up, and he asked me if I had run track, and embarrassed, I said no, and he said, "Well, you should," so I did. I reported to practice the next day. The next year, a new coach started. His name was John Laverty. He now coaches high school, and in my opinion, is a rock star. He took me under his wing, he taught me to be a team player, and I was hooked. I am the ultimate walk-on. You know those kids who just show up, you have no idea who they are, they seem like they might be okay, so you decide to keep them around. Their resume may not be impressive, but they work hard, and the next thing you know, they're contributing. They never won a championship for you, but they work hard, they keep their noses clean, and they do their best to be a contributor. I never tried out for a team, and I've never really been interviewed for a college position to coach. I was happily working in cardiology in 1997, and when my husband was talking to his brother that night on the phone, and I heard him saying, "Sure, she'll do it. Yeah, she'd love to do it." When I asked what he was talking about, he said, "Well, Stonehill let their track and field coach go. They're going to turn it into a club. They need someone to finish out the year, so I told them you'd do it." And that's how it all started. They basically needed a warm body, and that's who I was. I met who at the time was the athletic director, Paula Sullivan, a Division II powerhouse basketball coach in her own right, who didn't sugarcoat the situation. Things were pretty dire, and although she wasn't opposed to having the program, in her words, "I don't want to offer a sport where I'm not confident in recommending it to other people." Paula and I have ended up good friends. Unfortunately, she got stranded in a snowstorm in Boston. She's not here tonight. One of the best coaching mentors that a young, inexperienced female coach could ever wish for. The rest is history. One year led to another. 23 years later, here I am. And those who know me know that I've never, ever, ever been impressed with someone's starting point. What impresses me most is where they finish up. In closing, I want to say thank you for all the people who crossed my path and made a difference in my life. I have always had a great compass, but you always took the time to keep me focused and gave me the confidence and opportunities that I wouldn't have without you. Stonehill College. They have been supportive, understanding, and a community that I'm lucky to be a part of. I am fortunate to have a president who travels to many of our championships and who has attended as many events as any president that I can imagine. So many of our administrators are here tonight in full force, despite the others who got stranded in Boston. I want to thank my AD, Dean O'Keefe, in our athletic department. Not everyone understands our sport and all the idiosyncrasies that come along with it. They listened, they helped the program grow. My teams have always felt they were important, and an integral part of the campus in our athletic department. To all the assistant coaches who have passed through our program, at one time none of you was paid, and others we paid you with meals. You have all left your marks over the years, and I'm so delighted to have two of the best with me now, Mike Delgado and Dan Schwartz. To other coaches, I've learned from so many of you. I watched you, I called you, I copied your workouts, I listened to you at meetings. I think of Russ Jewett and Kim Deist, who served with me when I was brave enough to be the NCAA track and field committee early in my career. I was a rookie, and they taught me so much that I didn't know when I first joined. I want to thank George Williams, who probably doesn't even know he did this for me. He took me out to dinner in North Carolina and introduced me to some of the legends in track and field when I was so green behind the ears. Coaches from my conference, coaches from the PSAC and other conferences, who despite the fact that we are true competitors, became resources and persons to laugh with during these endless 9-hour track meets. To my friends and my family, I'm so fortunate to have you. My dear friend Judy, who's been following me around for 35 years. To my 3 daughters, Courtney, Molly, and Colleen, I have said so many times how grateful I am that you've been willing to share me with hundreds and hundreds of other kids. You did so without complaint. You understood my efforts to maintain balance in our lives. 2019 for our family has probably been the most challenging year of our lives. If any coach in this room wants a testimony to true strength and toughness, my 3 daughters are at that table, and I challenge you to introduce yourself to them. To my husband, Carl, the love of my life for 40 years. After 34 years of being the Director of Education for the Department of Corrections in Massachusetts, he supported me and without complaint decided to join the staff for the last 7 years. You've never complained that I was gone on weekends, and basically you are a role model to all of us, and I'm so appreciative. So on behalf of all the walk-ons and all the people who have mentored them and gave them a start, please know that you're noticed and you are responsible for any success that I could have had. Thank you.
Right over here for a picture.
Oh. I'll put my picture.